time for Life Chats with Maggie and Bunny. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Bunny.
How are you all today? Well, today we're going to talk about how many coats are you wearing? That's the topic. How many coats are you wearing? As we delve into this conversation, it's going to come a little clearer to you, or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be just something that starts you thinking. This time I will say that I did ask Bunny first if she felt comfortable with us talking about this, because it's a little bit outside the realm of what we normally talk about.
Yeah.
But she's given me the all thumbs up, and it's okay for us to talk about this. So what comes to mind for you, Bunny, about how many coats do you wear?
Well, the first thing, when you say how many coats do you wear, I mean, I understand the concept of that because we've been talking about that. But also, how many of those coats did you borrow from somebody else?
Yeah.
That are not your coats, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of I think a place that we're going to probably look into a little bit more here too. So maybe an explanation as to what we mean by how many coats is important.
Yeah, like how many coats do you wear? Well, let me start by telling you about a little trip I went on this morning in my shower. Not getting weird on you or anything, but as I've said before in this podcast, when I have a shower in the morning, I tend to do the Ho'oponopono prayer and bring some cleansing and allow things that I no longer need to go down the drain. And as water is a universal healer, as water is flowing, it's healing. So this morning, as I was doing that universal prayer of Ho'oponopono, suddenly I started having a conversation with God. And there at the end of my shower, I saw a vision of what I would imagine Jesus to be like, arms out, like I would imagine he would be on a cross. And the conversation that I was having with God was, Maggie, if I gave my one and only son to purify you and to take every sin that you ever had, why do you think you come into this world sinful? And that made sense to me. A little bit more of the backstory is that this year I'm doing a religious trauma studies course. And I'm also studying a book called The Inner Work. So it's doing a lot of internal work. Mm-hmm. And religious trauma has always been a topic of interest to me. And that's where in this conversation with God this morning, he said to me, how many coats do you put on that aren't yours? Mm-hmm. How many limiting beliefs from the time that you're born do you put on that I didn't give you? Now, that could be, for me, I say I'm talking to God, but it could be creator, the universe, whoever you see as your higher power. But I know for me coming into this world, my religious teaching has always taught that we're unworthy. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that we can be worthy is through Christ. What if that's not all there is? What if that's not true? Yes, I fully 100%, for me personally, believe that Christ died on the cross as a sacrifice to us. But I think somewhere in religion, we forget about the part that he did that.
Yeah.
So we suddenly don't need to be worthy. We come into this world completely pure, right. 100% pure. Babies do not come into this world wretched.
Right.
Babies do not come into this world carrying evil.
Right. Yeah.
Things that happen in this world are like coats that we put on. Mm-hmm. Or, as you said, coats that were given.
Yeah.
So when we talk about how many coats do you wear, it's that. What kind of limiting beliefs are we putting on or receiving, mm-hmm. whether intentionally or unintentionally? And I think a lot of the times the Bible is misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it's always been a thing of that worthiness, that I'm not worthy.
Mhm.
And it's also been, you know, we were taught that you couldn't question things. This is just how it is. But what if questioning things is how we figure them out?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I was having that conversation with God about. And he said, you know, why would I send my son to the cross for you if you still had to do something?
Yeah. Like if you had to in some way become worthy of love or that kind of thing. The way that you explain it, like, I haven't had a lot of experiences in, the way I grew up was not in an organized religion of any way. I've kind of through osmosis in our society have, experienced it and understand it, but um I don't have the same kind of upbringing that you had, and it's kind of on the outside. And so I remember you saying this to me a few years ago and saying that that when you were young, that's one thing that you questioned was like, if Jesus died for our sins, why are we still sinners then? Why do we still have to do why do we still have to do? And you're not saying necessarily that gives you free reign to be whoever and however you want to be mean to people and unkind. You're not saying that in any
No,
way.
not at all.
It's not about that. You're still loving and caring and kind, and you're still following the teachings of which, like, just to go on like a little bit of a side here, I've always noticed, as because I was a person who wasn't raised in one religion, I had the benefit of seeing and exploring all religions of the world, and they all have a similar message, which is to be kind and caring and loving to each
Yeah.
other. And
Yeah.
so, like, if we can agree again, when we talk about this world and being polarizing, and instead of looking for what our differences are, start looking for our same, like the things that are similar. And
Right.
so, if you are a specific religion, that might be something else that doesn't talk about Jesus or doesn't, talk about God, but it's some other name for that,
Yeah.
then you can still look at the similarities, that we are all being taught to be nice and kind to each other, to be caring, to be loving.
And the basic premise of most religions that I'm aware of is love.
Yes, exactly. So,
And if it isn't about love, then I don't necessarily want any part of that. And it's
yeah,
not going to gravitate to me. But I do believe that all other religions that I'm aware of,
yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
the basic premise is love.
right,
Yes, the characters might be different.
right. And the story might be a little bit different, but it's always the same. And I mean, even when you go into things like, if you go into even other spaces like indigenous cultures, even that they may have, they worship to grandmothers and grandfathers or different gods, different whatever the case may be. It is always about like being together and helping your fellow man or fellow woman or humankind, whatever the case may be. And so that is very important. And I think even me, who is a person, and there are a lot of us out here who were not raised in organized religion, we still, like, our base is love as well. Like
Mhm.
my, base is, I didn't I didn't have to learn to be loving and kind to people. That's who I
I
am.
think that we're just born that way.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
for example, for people who choose to have no religion,
Mhm.
people who choose to be atheist,
Right.
does that mean they're not a good person?
Right.
No. I
Exactly.
believe that we are all born loving and kind.
Mhm.
That coat that we put on of something else
Right.
is that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it matters. Any of that stuff matters when we come into this earth as a small baby.
Right.
We're all born perfect.
Right.
In this time of figuring out who we are and figuring out spirituality and figuring out personal growth and all of that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, we attach to things.
Right.
But I don't think it's a matter of becoming perfect. I
Right.
think we already are.
Right.
It's a matter of unbecoming
Yes.
what we
Or
aren't,
taking off the coats.
taking off the coats. It's like in our podcast yesterday, Linda had mentioned that it's the possibility that is there more.
Mhm.
And as soon as she said that, in my head, I'm thinking, and is there less?
Yeah.
Because I do believe that we put on so much
Mm-hmm.
that when we're on some kind of spiritual journey or some kind of self discovery journey, it doesn't even need to be spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
There's things we got to take off that we put on that we thought were correct that
Right.
maybe aren't,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe aren't right for us, or maybe aren't right for right now.
Right.
It's life changes and evolves.
Yeah.
And, it's being okay with change,
Yeah.
being okay with taking off one coat and putting on another coat. It doesn't change who you are.
Yeah. And I do think about, like, so I get, these messages, these images, although I don't see them, but these ideas that come through, um is like when a doctor puts on their white coat, they're now a doctor, even though inside underneath they are who they are. When they take off that coat, they're that person. They put on the coat, now they're the doctor. So they kind of, it's
Right.
like the character. So it's similar to that. It's like we put on, maybe when we were younger, and a lot of stuff does come from, our subconscious, unconscious programming, that a lot of it came before we were 7 years old. So, and this is like scientific. This is not religious stuff. This is like the
Hmm.
logical, like therapies and counselors and that sort of thing. And even in spirituality, we talk about this as well, because it is something that is important, to understand that there's a lot of stuff that happened, that we grabbed a coat. Somebody said, hey, to be successful in the world, you need this, and so you give them a coat. You got to do this to do that, to whatever you whatever thing. And I think this is where limiting beliefs comes from, is whatever thing you did naturally as a child. So in my case, I talked a lot, and when I went to school, the teachers were not okay with me talking, because I was not supposed to be talking. I was supposed to be listening to the teacher.
Right.
And at this time, talking to my friends was not what was supposed to be happening. I was supposed to be learning. So every time my parents would go to a thing, they'd say, she talks a lot. She talks a lot. She's a great kid, but she talks a lot. Which, okay, so when I was young, I was told talking a lot wasn't a good thing. But now, as a person who is a, professional and personal empowerment coach, what do? I talk to clients. And then as a host of a couple of podcasts now, what do? I talk. So these are the things. And doing
Yeah.
videos and teaching courses, talking is actually a good thing. But a limiting belief that I have is that I talk too much.
And what if you had kept that coat on of you got to be quiet? What
Exactly.
would that have done to your world now
Well,
if
not just
you
my
had,
world.
from a small child, kept
Yeah.
that I got to be quiet?
And not just my world, but other people who I have positively, affected their life and helped and have been in service to them. My gifts have, your gifts are to be shared with other people. That's why you have them, is because you're
Yeah.
there in service to help other people. And so having that have happened, if I decided that, oh, I can't do a podcast because nobody's going to want to hear what I say and I talk too much, and those kind of things. Those are the things that we're talking about when we're saying, when you're borrowing someone's coat, is that someone else
Yeah.
told you. And maybe too, that coat no longer fits you. Maybe it's too small. Maybe it worked for your, while I was in school, yes, I had to listen. So,
Yes.
so yes, but now I'm no longer in school. So now I can take that coat off, and so that can be something as well. It doesn't always have to be
Yeah.
bad.
No, it doesn't always have to be bad. And,
Yeah.
it's all good. And questioning it is good. And
Hmm.
that's what we wanted to do in this podcast today, is just put the questions out there
Hmm.
about what coat you're wearing. And, where do you get your information?
Hmm.
Where do you get those beliefs that you believe? And as I said earlier to you, my calendar for today, after this synchronized conversation that I had with God in my shower,
Hmm.
yes, in my shower, when I went and turned my calendar over, it said, sometimes change in direction in my life is more about leaning into a slight curve than making a U turn. We don't
Mhm.
have to give up our beliefs completely. We
Right.
don't have to take the coat off all the way.
Mhm.
Sometimes we just got to change it
Yeah.
or not. And
Yeah.
it's just about having those conversations. And that's what for today this podcast is all about, is maybe just getting you to ponder. What can you lean into that you can think about differently?
Mhm.
What today can you lean into and ask questions about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a coat you're wearing that doesn't serve you, that feels too heavy on you?
Yeah.
You can take it off.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you mentioned the heavy thing because just before you were saying this, I got the idea of a closet and how in you have seasons where in the summer you're going to wear, if anything, a very thin coat, where in the winter you're going to wear a thick coat. So it is possible that you might want to hang a coat up for a little while, and try a different coat and see what that is, to just keep playing on this this metaphor, this idea about the different coats. And you don't have, if you're not ready to completely let go of something, to like donate it. If you're not ready to donate your coat, you can always hang it up and put it away for the season and try a different coat on and see, and then, maybe it's something else will work, and maybe you'll find and discover some new hidden talents. um I'm all about right now rediscovering things that I enjoyed to do as a kid and doing more of that.
Yeah.
Things like dancing and coloring and blowing bubbles and singing and, all of those kind of things. And the things that I love to do as a kid that somebody may have told me that that's just for kids. Oh, even getting my Garfield, my stuffy Garfield, and he's on my bed. Like I have him on my bed, and every day when I go to bed, I smile looking at this little stuffy, and I'm like, oh, hi Garfield, just
Hi, my friend.
yeah, rekindling a kid. And that's it too, is I've been seeing some videos where people have been, um, even a lady who had gifted her parents with toys for Christmas because her parents did never had gotten toys when they were kids because their
Wow.
family was poor, and the dad was so happy to have this little fire truck and just play with, like, it was just so awesome. And we can do that now too. we
Yeah.
can we can still play with kids, like still find play with kids toys, do that stuff. But I think that's what, when people have grandkids or kids or grandkids, I think that's what it is we get that little bit of being able to be a kid again when you have
Maybe that'll be a conversation for another
for
podcast.
another time. Foreshadowing. And we did mention a podcast where our friend Linda, and so for those of you who may not have heard our podcast last week, where we did introduce that we have another endeavor, which is Voices of Empowerment, that is what Maggie is referring to. So you can always look for that as well on podcasts, on YouTube, on Facebook, Voices of Empowerment. But for sure, for us, I think we're gonna finish up for today, and I'll just let you know where you can find us if it's the first time you're listening to us. If it's not the first time, thanks for listening again. But you can find us on our website at aboveandbeyond.com. You can email us at aboveandbeyond@gmail.com. Facebook page, Spotify, and YouTube on Mondays at 11 a.m. every week. You will find our podcast. So
Thanks so
that's
much, everybody, for joining us. And we hope that you have a great day and a great rest of this week.
bye.
Bye. Love you.
Bye.